I'm going to just go ahead and pull up some posters. Do you see my student engagement poster? Let's go through them really quickly. I'll say it and then you repeat. My turn. Pronounce with me.
Pronounce with me.
Track with me.
Track with me.
Read with me.
Read with me.
Gesture with me.
Gesture.
Pair share.
Share.
And then switch. If you forget who did what, and sometimes I've done that, I just go like this. Okay, I don't know who talked, but let's go ahead and switch. So if A went first, they know who they are. All right. The other one is attention signal. When we do the attention signal, I need you to write this down, everybody. If you're taking notes, take notes here. Every student needs to be in the learning position. Whatever that looks like to you. For me, it means this. It means that my students have nothing in their hands. They're not playing or touching manipulatives or playing with books. It means they're sitting up, ready to learn. Nothing in their hands. If there's something in their hands, I will do this. I'll say, okay, 1, 2, eyes on you, hands on head, hands on shoulder, hands on desk. It's a way of ensuring that students, I always remind them, don't play with things because they will tap if they have a pencil. They will play with whatever's in their hands, markers. So I always want that attention to be no distractions. And for your students, a lot of your students nearby, it's if someone's playing with whatever, pen or pencil or flipping papers, it's going to distract that neighbor. So I want to make sure we understand the consequences of sounds other than the teacher. So attention signal means everyone's sitting erect, focused on you, ready to learn. One more thing is that if I'm teaching and I move anywhere in the room, I want my students' eyes to follow me. So I will purposely walk aside or behind them, 1, 2, eyes on you, and everybody has to position or reposition themselves to follow the teacher. I want to make sure I get 100% eyeballs. Why? Because whatever I'm pointing to, I don't want the students to miss. So if their back is to me, that's not good enough. So I always make sure that wherever I am, my students are learned, that they understand they need to give me their shoulders and their eyes wherever I am. All right, that's attention signal. And then I do a couple of things. We can do things like clap the hands for the little kids when they need to do something, when they're really sleepy and tired. I want the kids to actually be involved in the attention with me. And so that's why I do hands on head, shoulders, snowball hands, and clap, and other things that we do. But whatever happens, I want to make sure that they are all attentive and no talking. All right. Does anyone have any comments about how I do attention signal? And Nina or anybody else, would you like to add to that?
No, I think a lot of classrooms do obviously definitely different attention signals that work for their class. We don't have a consistent way of grabbing students' attention. It's just ideally whatever the teacher believes works for their class. But ideally, yeah, all the other student engagement norms are things that we regularly practice in our classrooms.
Attention signals and then whiteboards. What I like to do with my little guys is I like to have them write it and then hide it. That means turn it over, and then I have them just hover. And the reason I have them hover, especially if they have these ones, the light ones, is so that they're doing something and not playing and showing the answer. So I had cover and hover and then spin it to win it. So when I use whiteboards, I have fun things like that. So cover and hover and then spin it to win it. But here's the big thing. I want to make sure that all the kids are what? Ready to show me at once. I don't want students to flash the answer, giving it away. So it has to be in sync. I think we understand that. And then finally, the last one is what? Complete sentences. All right. So on your whiteboard, write down the top one or two that you use a lot in your classrooms, and then we're just going to go and share. So go ahead and take some time to do that. Let's practice telling your partner, I like whiteboards or complete sentences. This is how I do it. I like gestures. So let's go ahead and have that discussion. Okay, another 10 seconds. And then Nina, if you wouldn't mind calling on somebody to share out to the group, that would be great.
Yeah, do you want me to go? I've just pop stick someone. Yeah.
Please.
Sharon Reed.
I like doing track with me with my little sections. So on my whiteboard.
One of the things I like about tracking is and I need all of my students to do this, is that I may come across a word that would be difficult. And if the students aren't tracking right with me, they're going to miss that word and the opportunity to syllabicate or be able to hear the definition. So when I have my students track, then I say, tell your partner what word we're on. And they will say, oh, we are on the word identify. And so the students are all in sync. And so we want to make sure that the students are tracking words and sentences that I'm teaching and identifying. So thank you very much, Sharon. All right, Nina, could you pick someone else?
Sharon. Now she's one of our fantastic SSOs. So I don't know if what you do, obviously in the intervention space, Sharon, that maybe you'd want to share what one of the engagement norms you use.
Generally, when I do my morphograph lessons, we use the whiteboard, and I will cover and chin it.
All right. And make sure that we call on students with the whiteboards. I never use sticks. It's teacher's choice. I think we remember that from the last time. Always the teacher's choice. I don't want to pull a stick and pick on the one student that got it wrong. I don't want to embarrass that student. I want to give everybody an opportunity to succeed. So I will call on, I think Joe uses the high, medium, and low students. So he'll call on a student that he knows can pronounce the word and will be able to give a complete sentence. And then at that point, call on a student who's heard it correctly and call on another student who maybe needs more time to practice or needs that confidence. But anyway, very good. Thank you very much. And then one more person, Nina.
Ashley.
In my class, I use a lot of the pronounce with me and the choral reading stuff for different like definitions or words on the board, as well as some like texts that we read together as a class. So I might read it, then we'll read it, and then they'll read it back to me.
And what grade do you teach?
Year 4.
Okay, good. And so I think what we remember is I read, students read. Then what I do is I teach my kids to read with prosody. How many of you have heard that word prosody before? It means to read fluently. So today we will identify characters in a story. And so I'm going to show you what that looks like in a little bit, but I will start with my turn. Today we will identify characters in a story, and then we are going to put it together in chunks, and then finally we read the whole thing. I'm trying to teach my kids not to read staccato, but to form words together. Today we will identify characters in a story. You see how I bunched those words together? And that's what we want to teach our students to do. And then finally read the whole sentence. We'll practice that, no worries. Now, does anybody else want to just tell us? I always take a volunteer after 2 or 3 non-volunteers. What's one of these student engagements you like to use in your classroom? Maybe you can just tell us and unmute yourself.
I think something that I myself as a leader see right across the school is the use of the whiteboards. That is just constant in every classroom. Students know the norms, students know how to utilize them. And yeah, that's just something that all teachers are using right across the school, which is fantastic to see.
How many of you teachers have your kids write in really, really tiny fonts? All right. So I used to have that problem, and they did it because they didn't want to be seen. But I always tell, this is the litmus test. I want all of my students to use their index finger. Every letter has to be the size of that, so that I know the students are writing large enough that I can read it all the way in the back of the room. So I practice that. And one of the first things I tell my students is write your name. And they write their name, and then I say, okay, use your finger. So I like using that. Anything bigger than that's too big. But if it's only 2 or 3 words we're writing, that's plenty big. But please, no tiny fonts, no drawing butterflies or pretty bees, no letters with little wings on them. So we really want to remind our students, let's go ahead and write quickly and cleanly. All right, so let's just go over really quick one more time. I'm just going to show you the gestures. You shout it out. All right, the first one is
Pronounce with me. Track with me. Read with me. Gesture with me. Pair share. Attention signal. Whiteboards. Complete sentences.
all right. And so I tell my students that when my students are so tuned in, I just do this and they automatically know, okay, complete sentences. I don't even have to prompt them anymore. So we've done it so many times, and I'll smile. I go, I want this. And then the students will give me the complete sentences. Okay. So remember, we will be practicing these amongst ourselves when we start going and doing the lessons here in a little bit. Okay. Do we all see this poster, effective feedback? This is all part of TAPL. All right. So we're going to practice TAPL and spend a lot of time, but I want to remind us of these. Provide cues and prompts. If you have any of those in or posters or complete sentences, you want to point to that. So cues would be that. Remember that the students always have an opportunity. If they don't know the answer, we'll come back, but make sure you do what? You come back. Sometimes I'll even tell my students, it's okay for you to remind Mr. Federico if I forgot to come back. So my students will raise their hand. Mr. Federico, you forgot to come back to us. And so they'll remind me if I forget to do this. So I'll come back to you, give them an opportunity, de-escalate, give them 2 choices, make it simpler. Explain your thinking, and this is why we explain thinking. I don't know if you remember this, but a lot of our students may give us a word and it's misused because it's a multiple meaning word. So if I'll ask for a product and we're in math, the students will give me the answer of a product. Oh, that's something you buy at a store. So the product in the grocery stores are 3 apples and 2 bananas. And I'll say, well, today we're going to multiply, and the answer to multiplication is called a product. So that's why I always have students explain their thinking. They're not necessarily wrong. They're just misunderstanding the concept. And so that's part of the clarification. We always allow students an opportunity to think aloud and tell me how they came up with their answer. And it could be just something very simply misunderstood. All right, and we can clarify that. Read the answer if the students are a little confused and just point to it. Go ahead and read answer 2, and then they read the answer and then they can correct themselves. 2 wrong answers. What do we do, everybody? Yeah, we don't want to go on an expedition. If we keep asking students who knows the answer, oh, nope. 10 kids later, one kid gives the answer and we go, yep, okay, I knew somebody knew it, and we move on. We want to make sure that we, because it's samples, you take non-volunteers and you're taking a sample. One person doesn't get it, another sample doesn't get it. Stop, reteach. Now that's different for whiteboards, because the whiteboards, you can visually see if you got 80% or better, can't you? So if you have 80% or better, continue and then correct the 2 or 3 that are wrong. But if you get 50% wrong, teachers, everybody erase your whiteboards. Teachers, we need to reteach. So the whiteboards, less than 80%, if it's 60, 50, whatever, we reteach. But if it's sticks, 2 wrong answers, and we reteach. All right. And then we finally go back and pair share again. Okay. Now would like everyone to do this. Now that we have partners, I want you to determine who's going to be A and B partner. So go ahead and work that out amongst your groups. And then if you're 3 of you, that means 1 of you is going to be an A and 2 of you is going to be a B. So in a bit, Nina, I'm going to have you call on somebody. So I would like every group pair share. All right. A's tell B's, what does explain your thinking mean? What is that? A's go first. And then switch. B's tell A's. Okay, I'm going to say hocus pocus, and you're going to say time to focus. Hocus pocus, time to focus. All right, that's for my little guys. All right, Nita, could you call on somebody, please?
Lisa, W.
Explain your thinking, we said, means expand in detail.
Okay.
Yeah, so Brianna just wrote to explain their thought process behind their answer.
Okay, yeah, to explain the thought process behind the answer. Very good. And then Nina, one more person. Explain your thinking. What does that mean to you?
To share with us how they got the answer.
Thank you. How they got the answer, because if it's a little bit wrong or skewed, then they can explain their thought process and we can go back and fix the error. And remember, our job is always to try to get students not only to come up with the right answer, but to discover why their answer was incorrect. So this is what I'd like us all to write down. Okay, this is our objective. Our objective with all of these posters and all of our strategies is this: to remove obstacles that prevent students from learning or advancing. So misconceptions are very much part of that. Okay, and then does anyone want to volunteer what they wrote? In your own words, what does explain your thinking mean to you? I'll take a volunteer.
We thought that it meant to like explain how you came to your answers so that you can then, fix any misconceptions and so forth.
That's great. Explain your answers, how you came, and then we always want students to what? We want them to be able to do mastery or higher order thinking. Critical thinking is what we're asking for when we explain your thinking for the right, and also to discover answers that are in error. But that is the process. It's always going to be about explain your thinking. What is the process you use? Thank you very much. Nina, do all of your teachers have this poster?
Yeah, I think in most classrooms they have the poster.
All of these posters and the rest of the posters we're going to look at can all be downloaded off of the Educary lessons. You just go in the URL that you just go ahead and put in the search, and you'll put posters, and you will get all of these posters. I know they're tiny right there, but all of these posters that are your immediate disposal, you can make a copy, print them out. Find that. Let me just show you. If you're in the Educary lesson, if you can see this, you would just put in here posters. Click it, and all of these posters are at your disposal. They're all free. Now, I like doing this as a fun exercise. Let's go over all of these together. T stands for what, everybody?
Teach first.
Teach first. Now, let's be very clear. When we teach a new concept, when it's a brand new idea, when you're providing new information, of course, we're not always going to do this all the time, but every time you teach a brand new objective, that's what we're talking about. If it's a new word, that's what I'm talking about. If it's a new idea for a concept, teach first. What we don't want to do is ask students, who here knows what an inference is? Or who could tell me what mitosis is in science? What we don't want to do is ask those questions most of the time, because kids will probably not know, or they'll guess, and then we're going to teach it correctly anyway. So when we see teach first, it says here, teach first before you ask the question. So students are well equipped, it says equipped, but I want to say well equipped to respond. So we're going to teach first any new word, any new phrase, idea, or concept. Teach first. The next one is what after that? Ask. Good. So we're going to ask a specific question, and it's a question that pertains to what you just taught. If you taught students how to add a unit fraction, then your question needs to be, what does unit mean in a unit fraction? And the kids will say unit means 1. And so we want to make sure, teachers, that we ask a question immediately after we teach, not 2 minutes, not 5 minutes, because students are not likely to recall from the brain research what you taught 5 minutes ago. So whenever we ask a question, it has to be immediately after you just gave a quick scenario or a quick definition or whatever it is that you just made the statement about. No more than 2 minutes. And then after we ask a question, we don't call on everybody, we do this. What is this, everyone?
Pair share.
All right, so then you've already settled who's A, who's B. Again, with my kids, we used to have, because we're very big here in California, chips and salsa. A's your chips, B's your salsa. Mix it up. So the kids would then afterwards, we'd come up with their own A-B partners. So apples, bananas, peanut butter jelly. And after a while, the kids come up with their own pairs. It's kind of fun. But right now, just for the sake of continuity, we're just going to go A and B. So pair share. And this is how we're going to do pair shares. I don't know if this is something Joe or anybody's ever taught you, but number 1, pair share. Number 2, process. Number 3, point. Point to the answer. Point to the answer that you wrote on the whiteboard. Point to the text. Point to wherever the answer came. And 4, prove it. Now, again, this is different than our kinders in first grade, our foundational, but second grade on up, pair share. This is what it looks like. Process. That's wait time. Process is wait time. Okay. The other P is point. Point to the word, the answer, the number, the text you are identifying. Point. And show it to your partner and then prove it. I need to prove it to them first. Let me tell you why that's so powerful. If you prove it and your other partner agrees and they prove it back, they're more likely to have that confidence rather than just state it. Oh, I think it's this answer. Yeah, okay. I agree. No, they need to prove it by explaining how it's correct, by explaining to their partner why that is an abbreviation, a compound word, a conjunction. That's what we want students to do. That's the critical thinking we need. It's more than just, this is my answer. Yeah, I got the same. Do you see the difference? So the 4 P's are our pair share, process, especially for our students who take more time, point to wherever the text is, make sure they're on the same page, and then finally prove it. I know it's right. I'm going to prove it to you. And the other student will either what? Yes, I agree, or no, I don't agree. I think it's 6 times 4 is 24, not 36. Now, do we do this for all of the questions? No, we only do it for skill. We want to make sure we do this for skill and guided practice. We want to make sure that our students, this is why I'm having you do that. Nina, this is why it's so important. Our skill should always advance the concept. So if the kids are retelling a story, or if they are discussing the parts of a story, we want to make sure that that's what they're saying to their partner. So not, hey, I'm drawing a nice picture. No, you are describing a setting. Not that I'm drawing a nice picture. It has trees and I've got a little boy and a kangaroo. You're drawing, no, you're describing the setting. My setting has the character of a kangaroo and so on and so forth. Do you see the difference? Because kids will just tell you what they're doing and they'll share the activity, but they won't tell you the concept. Okay, what are you doing? I'm adding numbers. No, you're composing numbers to find the sum. And I want to make sure that we understand the difference. So every time we do this higher order pair share, it's to advance the what, everybody? Advancing the concept, the main idea. All right. So when we look and we go to skill, what am I doing? We're drawing an inference. And then what does that look like? An inference is what we think is going to happen or what we think is happening. And it's never written explicitly in the text. That's what we need our students to practice whenever they're sharing and doing the skill. All right, in math, same thing. What are we doing? Well, we are adding unit fractions. And we want to make sure that the kids just don't do the algorithm. Look at the answers. The answer is correct. No, we are adding a unit fraction, and a unit fraction has 1 as a numerator and a denominator, could be whatever. So especially for our foundation, our beginning kids, we definitely want them to always tell us what they're doing, not what they're drawing, not what the activity is, but what is the concept behind the activity. Okay, all right. Then after we pair share, of course, we non-volunteer, and then sometimes we'll say, what did your partner say? Did you agree with them? And then pick a non-volunteer, whether it's a whiteboard or sticks. Now, again, how many of you are special resource teachers? Do we have any of those? I see a hand. All right. What I like to do is I will color code my sticks so that if I pull a special needs student who needs a little bit more process time, this is what I'll do. I'll say, Nina, I'm going to pretend that you are one of my special needs students. I'll say, all right, Nina, so pay attention. I'm going to ask you a question. All right, so I'm going to ask you next. And then I would go to Angela. Angela, could you please tell me what is 6 times 4? Nina, listen very carefully. 6 times 4 is 24. Nina, is that the answer you got? Yes, yes, it is. Okay, tell me what it is one more time. 6 times 4 is 24. You know which students to do that for. That's up to you. But that's one of the things that I want you to be aware of, so that you can sort of help those students who need a little bit more what? Think time. And you don't want to call them. The reason I'm doing that is because I work with special needs and English learners all the time. And when I call them, I always give them advance notice. Okay, and I'll say, hey, Larry, yeah, I'm going to call on you in a little bit, so pay attention. And here's your stick, so be ready. And then, okay, Amy, could you please tell me? Okay, Larry, are you ready? And yes, I'm ready. I want to show you my answer. All right. That's one of the things we can do with sticks. And then listen, and everyone, you need to write this down. Listen and look. Listen and look. Even though it's not there, we know that that's the same idea. If you're using whiteboards, this should also say, and look for the answer, and then have students an opportunity to respond. And then we already went through the effective feedback, but remember, the effective feedback is to make sure that our 3 things: elaborate in your own words. That's what elaborate means, in your own words. Explain means give me the bulletproof definition, give me the word for word. And then reteach means we're not quite there yet. If you get 2 wrong answers, reteach. Okay. Now, here's what I'm going to do. Without using any posters, I want you to write down, what does TAPL stand for? On your own, no pair share, no cheating, no using your handouts. All from memory. What does TAPL stand for? When you're done, just raise your hand. Okay. All right. Don't share with anybody and don't even show me. Now, after you've written that, I want you to pair share with your partner and see if you agree. In other words, help each other. Okay. Here's my question. Raise your hand if your partner helped you. Look around the room. That's the power of pair share. If we do not see from our own experiences that this is so powerful and students all hear different things, we remember different things. It's so important to look at what we just learned. Our partners are very powerful in helping us. And so there's strength in that. And so let's see how many of you got this correctly. How many of you, without your partner, you got all 6 of these 100% correct without your partner? Good for you. Look at, Nina, you go shine, girl. Awesome. Anybody else? Thank you. Okay, I think that was Erin. Is that Tamika or Sharon that raised it? Sharon. Got it. Awesome. Okay, now that you look at this, how many of you remember this? Listen and look. Raise your hand if you did both. If you did not do both, then you didn't get 100%. Raise your hand if you did that. You did listen and look. Raise your hand. Awesome. Look at that. Thank you. Okay. So now, what are we trying to do here? What we're trying to do is remember that checking for understanding, this is the crux. This is the meat of everything we do. We do not advance any lesson unless we make sure and understand that our students are with us. So checking for understanding, this is the way that I remember. This is how it helps me. That if I'm leading, I want to make sure that my students are following me and not getting off the path. So checking for understanding isn't leading with your kids behind you. It's really doing this. It's leading with your back towards where you're going and making sure your students are following you. It's like a duck walking backwards, making sure her chicks aren't falling off of into the pond or off of the side. Checking for understanding is leading by facing the students and they're following you. That's how I like to look at it. Everyone needs to be in carefully following and in steps so that they don't get off task or get lost. Okay. So in a bit, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go into some more reminders of how we're going to use the teaching. Nina, I'm going to have them take a break here.
All right, so yeah, toilet break, and then we'll come back. Beautiful.